one of the things that I thought was really interesting, um, what is an argument I've heard from my friends, and I want you to hear it and respond to it, which is, why would sex ever outside of marriage be bad? I mean, if it's between two consensual adults, if it's
Hmm.
loving, it's such a beautiful act. There's no violence in it. Um, why is that morally incorrect? How is that ever wrong for us to have sex outside of marriage or even date?
Understood. Understood. Very common argument made about illegal sex or illegitimate sex and other things as well. And the answer is from two aspects. Aspect number one is a general aspect, which cannot be ignored. And aspect number two is a specific answer. The general answer or the general aspect is talking to a non Muslim, we have to get them to understand that we are created, we were made. We did not create ourselves, we did not make ourselves. Life was given to us as a gift. Things were given to us as consignment. We have a responsibility to show thankfulness. And from that thankfulness is to obey the Creator and to follow His will. And it is not left up to how we think and how we feel. If God says that going north is bad, we go south, we go west, we go east, we don't go north. Well, what's wrong with north? It doesn't make any sense. Why? Because the one who gave us brains and one who gave us the ability to think and feel, he knows more than us. As I mentioned, he's more wise than us. So therefore, we realize that we're servants and we know our place with our ruler and our master. And that's point number one. And that general point is applicable to every other rule in Islam. Number two, well, that seems good between John and Jackie. They have clean, good sex. They're boyfriend, girlfriend. They're not married. He takes care of her. They live with each other. What's the big issue, right? John and Jackie, they may be more happy than two Muslims that are married or two Christians that are married. They may have less arguments, less fighting. They may have more harmony in their household. But can you say that for every other person having illegitimate sex? Is every situation so peaceful and harmonious? And once a person opens up his lusts, his desires, it's like a dog with no leash. There's
Right,
no
but
control.
can't you say that for everything? Can't that there are gonna be people who are good at it, are gonna be people who are bad at it, and we're just gonna have to accept that?
Of course, but there has to be regulation. It's like getting a parking ticket. No one likes parking cops. Okay, I can tell you in New York City, there's certain people who work for the police. They're parking officers and they're Muslim. They come into the masjid. And when they come to the masjid to pray on Friday, everybody stares at them, gives them the death stare, like they're not Muslim. And no one likes getting a ticket. Everyone wants to curse out the person, argue, etc., etc. But what would happen if somebody parked inside of a fire hydrant and your house caught on fire? Your mother was in that house and they couldn't get to the hydrant. What would happen if someone parked inside of your driveway and your daughter fell and broke her leg and she had to be rushed to the hospital and they couldn't get past the car? Everyone would get upset. What would happen if somebody didn't stop at the stop sign and ran into you and crashed into your car? What would happen? So life without regulation would be utterly chaotic. And the human being by nature is argumentative. So he's going to say, man, that stop sign is stupid. Why do I got to wait here for 30 seconds? Why do I got to get a ticket? Why do I have to get this license? Everyone is going to complain. But when the lack of regulation, when you feel it on you, your family, your health, oh, this man didn't have a license and he was driving. This man was drunk. This person parked in front of my driveway. My mother died. The ambulance, they were just there, but it took an extra 30 seconds for them to get around the car. Then
Hmm.
what? So just think about that now. Think about the comparison. Think about regulation and the need for enforcement and the need for regulation. And when people are allowed to do whatever they want to do, they'll end up harming their own selves.
Right.
That's a fact.
And
That's especially something as something as explosive and flammable as sexual desires.
right. And I think one thing that's a disconnect between how us Muslims think and how and the general public, is that we don't find happiness as a good reason for an action. Like if someone told me, If I ask someone, why are you doing this act that is up to moral question? And they said, well, because it makes me happy. In philosophy itself, even in secular logical thought, as well as Islamic thought, that's not a good enough reason. Something making you happy is not a valid reason to do it. And we find that to be an example in drugs and alcohol and all of those other things.
For sure, no doubt about it. There's so many different wisdoms, but I mean, I'll tell this to you. One day in the time of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, there was a young boy. And the young boy, he said to the Prophet, he said, "O Messenger of Allah, please allow me to have sex before marriage. Allow me to make zina." So the companions that were around the Prophet, of course, they looked at him. Well, how could you ask such a question like that? So disrespectful. What do you mean? But the Prophet's wisdom was deeper. He said, come, young man. The young man came close. And look at this beautiful, beautiful story. The Prophet didn't tell him that he was a sinner. He didn't say he was evil. He didn't say he was going to hell. He asked him one question. He says, would you like that for your mother? The boy said, of course not. I wouldn't like it for my mother. And the Prophet said to him, well, those are other people's mothers that you're doing that with. They don't like it either. And then the Prophet asked him again, would you like it for your daughter? Would you like it for your sister? Would you like it for your aunt? Would you like it for the women in your family to be abused and mistreated and looked at as just, a temporary piece of lust? The boy, every time he said, of course I wouldn't. So I think just common consideration, all right? How would you feel if that was your mother or your sister or your daughter? And no one, no matter what video, rock, rap, whatever type of music, no matter what, no one wants that for their women. Nobody wants that. Nobody. That's a fact. That's a fact. People, they can say it, I don't care, that's her life, but nobody wants to go to sleep at the night and realizing my daughter's a whore. My son is a savage. He's just going around sleeping with 1,000 women. They don't want that. That's unnatural. So that's one of the problems with having no restrictions on one's sexual desires, is that it causes you to violate, first and foremost, God's laws. And it causes you to violate yourself, and you violate the honor of other people. And all of these things are prohibitions that are not found in, like you said, marriage. Even if you have an argument with your wife, even if it's domestic abuse, it's still your wife. You're still responsible. There's still some type of honor involved. Versus, she's my girlfriend, I can leave her anytime I want to. I don't have to ever call her or speak to her ever again because we ain't married. You see a ring on my finger? That's what non-Muslims say.
Yeah.
And this is one of the reasons why many people avoid marriage, is because of the responsibility
and the commitment it brings.
There you go. That's the word. There you go. Exactly. So that's supposed to bring the best out of the Muslim. Marriage is not just for having children and having permissible sex, but it's also meant to mold you into a better human being.
And exactly. And that, I don't know if this is an Islamic thing, but at least I hear Egyptians say this all the time, which is I want to finish half my religion. And
that's right,
I've always thought that was kind of odd. Like, okay, I guess God is really pro-marriage. But what I realized throughout the years is marriage is what signifies and what shows to God really who a person's character is. How you treat your children, how you treat your wife,
no doubt,
how you operate in the household is the ultimate
100%.
shower of character.
Well, you got to understand I don't know about nowadays, but back in the day, many Italians, it was a well-known Italian practice and also Sicilian practice, is that whenever they wanted to do business with a man, whether it was legal business or illegal business, they would ask to come over to the man's house. And they would look at how the man's wife talks to him, how she's dressed. They would look at how the children, do they meet him at the door? Do they jump on his back? Do they cling onto his legs? Does the man have to peel his children off of his legs and say, let me sit down first? Or do they remain at the dinner table and mind their business? So they would observe the man's interaction with his family. Then that would determine, do we do business with him or not? If the kids, if he had to peel the kids off of his back, then they would say he's an honest man. He's a sincere man. Whatever he does, he's going to put his heart into it. But if the wife looks up and she looks immediately down at the ground, they will realize he's beat his wife before. She's afraid to make eye contact with him. His kids don't love him. His kids, they're not attached to him. He's not a straight man. We don't want to do business with this guy. Just think about that now. These are non-Muslims now. Think about that.
And
you understand the prophet, he says that the best of you are those who are best to their families. So there's so much good that is pulled out and brought to the surface through commitment, as you mentioned, through marriage.
And one of the biggest problems that a lot of Muslim women face in America is that they tell me, hey, I want to marry a non-Muslim. How come Muslim men get to marry non-Muslims and we can't marry non-Muslims? I honestly have no idea. That's a great question. Why is that the case?
Clear. Well, you got to understand something that, like I mentioned about CBD, right? About weed, recreational marijuana. Just because the laws are a thing doesn't mean that's how our religion is. So in Islam, we believe as Muslims is that men have responsibilities and women have responsibilities. Both sexes have responsibilities. And from the responsibilities of the man is that the man is supposed to be the leader. And the man is supposed to be the guide. The man is supposed to be the role model. The man is supposed to be the one who's there for his wife and who sets the example for his family, and he's strong enough for his family. So if that's the case with marriage, then how is a Muslim to look towards a non-Muslim for spiritual guidance? How can a Muslim woman look for an example and support and help to a man, her husband, who doesn't pray, who doesn't believe in what she believes in? So it's literally impossible.
Some of these women would respond back to you and say, well, I'm a powerful, independent, strong woman. In fact, I may even be the one running my household. I'm in charge. No man's going to tell me what to do. What would you say to that?
Well, that sounds good. That sounds good. The different feminist movements, that sounds great. But deep down inside, there are things that human beings know that they need from the other sex. That's a fact. Okay, so I have children. Now, no matter what I do with my children, my son, my daughter, I put them on my neck, my back, I play with them, read them stories, etc., etc. I know is that there's a time in which this child needs its mother. And there's nothing that I can do that can substitute the mother, whether it's breast milk, whether it's the mother's lullabies, whether it's the mother's patience upon crying. That men don't have the same ears as women. That's a fact. Men do not tolerate babies crying like women do. It's a difference. So there are certain things that no matter how tough you try to be, you're not a woman, you're not a mother. And the same applies to the other sex. No matter how strong you are, how domineering you are, I have my own money, you're a woman. And there's certain things that you need in the opposite sex. And there's certain things that our law did not create in you to do by yourself. So the whole concept of gender roles, the whole concept of chauvinism, feminism, neo-feminism, etc. That's a long, sticky debate and discussion. What's important is just be realistic, okay? Women who say, I don't need a man, I don't want to get married, I want to pursue a career, no problem. But as those women, most of them, as they age, when you actually sit down with them and talk with them, especially non-Muslims, like I said, drinking alcohol at the bar, they'll start talking about their life. I wish I would have had children. I have money, I have success, I have this big fat house, I have this boat, but I'm miserable. I don't have a child. I'm a woman without a family. I can't, I don't have a husband. That's a natural desire of a woman. Every woman deep down inside, she wants to have that. And every man, a man who says, I don't need no woman, I don't need no wife, I don't have to settle down, I don't need no commitments. There are too many women in the world. Every time, I'll get a younger woman, a better looking woman. Deep down inside, he's empty. And he wants a wife, not a girl, not a plaything that he switches and replaces every 6 months, a newer, fresher, younger, prettier one. But he wants a woman that he can trust. He wants a woman he can go to sleep. He wants a woman he doesn't have to lie to. He wants a woman that there's an actual, she really is concerned about his well-being. That's natural.
So how do you think that pertains to not being able, for a Muslim woman not being able to marry non-Muslim men?
Is that the man is supposed to be the leader. He's supposed to be the guide of the household. He's supposed to be the one who's in charge of the well-being physical, spiritual, mental, emotional well-being of the household. And that cannot be with someone who doesn't share the person's faith. Whereas the man who's married to a non-Muslim woman, he's in charge. He's the guy. And she comes aboard knowing that he's a Muslim and in this Islamic household. Now, the dynamic is extremely different with regards to a Christian woman who says, I believe in one God, but I don't believe in Islam. Or I believe in it, but I haven't accepted it yet. But I like this man. He's kind. He can provide for me. He can take care of me. He can show me love and affection. And I respect his religion. He respects mine. We don't have religious debates. I know he prays. I wake him up to pray. We have halal meats. I know no pork, no alcohol, no this and no that. And when we go outside, she's a Christian now. She dresses modestly, even without a hijab, but she's not wearing skin tight mini skirts outside, right? Now, that dynamic is not the same with a woman with a non-Muslim man, because the man is supposed to be the imam. He's supposed to be the leader and the guide. So for a non-Muslim to be a Muslim's leader and guide is extremely problematic. And that dynamic is not the same with a Muslim man being the guide of a non-Muslim woman.
I see.
And then, of course, there's not going to make sense in today's modern standards. Like I said, the concept of there is no gender role. Women and men are totally equal. There's no difference between the sexes. Everything a man can do, a woman do. In that modern light, we could never have that discussion.